Today, I just wanted to kind of knead my clay and go over a story about what it's like after you're assaulted and kind of just how you can deal with it. Um, Doing things like kneading the clay just reminds me of just going over things over and over again. It's a nice meditation practice. So it just lets my mind wander. Just like anything with art, art's always a really big help with this kind of stuff. But it reminds me that you constantly have to be working at something to get a good result, like clay without air bubbles, and that you can turn into a nice piece of pottery. So, with my story, it wasn't the first time I had been assaulted, but the first time was when I was very little in elementary school, where another little boy had come up behind me and spanked me in front of all of my friends. And the school system did absolutely nothing. They just told us to stay separate. So all of my friends eventually went away, and he was able to do whatever he wanted since he didn't listen to the rules. And I, being young and kind of naive, I listened to whatever my teachers would tell me. So I would just kind of go on like that and let things happen. Um, but that was that for the most part. And then going into high school, I was in junior year and I started dating this boy. And we had a toxic relationship for a solid half of a year. Going into the break, messy, just really not good. And I had some issues where I just couldn't let things go. Like, he was my first love. And the first person I ended up having sex with. So I just couldn't let him go. And I ended up talking to him after the breakup. We decided to be friends, I guess. But this one night, he wanted me to come to his band concert. So I went and watched and hung out after for a little bit. I could kind of sense what was going on. I felt his energy and that he was not going to back down, but I didn't really know what to do. I didn't think he would be that kind of person. So I just went along with things. I resisted a little bit and kind of like backed up from him, but I don't know, maybe it was the familiarity or something. I trusted him a little bit too much. And I let him push me into the car, the back seat of my car, where he then bit my throat. I couldn't breathe for a second, and I just kind of went into shock, where it hurt. He didn't cause me harm, but I just couldn't move anymore. I think I just kind of went into a self paralyzing fear where I could not talk, I could not move, I just couldn't function anymore. And he ended up taking advantage of that. He didn't read any of my cues and just went about and did whatever he wanted to do. I did manage to squeak out a no, but it was not enough. What happened, I was so numbed from everything that I really couldn't feel anything. I just felt like crap. I was just uncomfortable. I wanted to go to bed. I wanted to take a shower. I told my parents what had happened, but none of us really realized, especially the way that I had described it. I blamed myself for a long time. Um, and I honestly don't think that it was my fault anymore. He blamed me for the whole thing, told me I was asking for it, but I know in the end that it was just a mistake that I made not to have run away, not to have said more. There's a lot of regret about that night, but at the same time, I learned a lot from it and that it's never going to happen again. And I was in such a bad mental place at the time that I even involved myself with him in the first place. And I know that I will never fall prey to that kind of thing again, that kind of person. So it's just kind of disappointing situation. And when I took the shower that night, I just felt gross. I felt dirty. I was just uncomfortable for weeks. My friends couldn't really help me. I didn't have a whole lot of friends at the time, but my best friend even had to explain to me that that had happened. And my cousin had to explain to me that that had happened. They were all going through their own things at the time. So it was just a very messy situation. And for months, I remember this happened around April to May of last year. And well into the summer, I had been crying every single day when I was alone. Just really going through it. I couldn't be alone or I would have panic attacks. I couldn't really be around men. I couldn't hug my parents. I couldn't hug my friends. I just could not be touched by anybody. I didn't want to see my family. I didn't want to face what had happened, really. And all of the people I knew who had similar experiences, their whole advice recovery was just listening to music. And I think that is good advice to a certain extent, but more goes into it. You can't just ignore what happens. It doesn't ever really go away. So listening to music might help you cope in the moment. It might feel okay. But you need to do more to really recover. So I had gone to therapy for about a year, and it was just constantly, I had still gone to school with this boy for all of senior year, and I was terrified. And somehow we had ended up parking very similar with our assigned parking. So I would see him almost every single day. And it's just, the wound opened every single day. Nobody really knew how I felt. Nobody had been in the same situation as me. Nobody could really help me. And this one day I saw him in my friend's class. I was helping her with her cat, bringing her in for an assignment. And he just looked so little. He just looked very tiny, and I kind of realized, what was I scared of this whole time? But then I constantly have nightmares about him. I constantly am just scared. I don't go out at night anymore. I don't go anywhere without a partner of some sort. I don't go grocery shopping alone anymore. I struggled with it for a long time, and I feel like finally, after a year and a half, I'm getting to the point where I'm okay with it. Not that it happened, just okay with it existing, I guess, having gone through a situation like that and learning from it. Just feeling okay with myself and not blaming myself anymore. Just to the point of, the nightmares don't bother me anymore. He's not so scary. Of course, I would never want to talk to him. I would never want to see him again. But realistically, he's never going to cross my path again. But going to this point, I don't feel like I have to forgive him, because I don't think that it's really ever a forgivable thing. I just feel like I have to get what I had to say out and spread my story and how I deal with it to help other women. Considering the statistics that 1 in 4 women are assaulted before they become adults, this isn't an unusual experience for most people, and that's very unfortunate. The way I dealt with it best, I'm a very anxious type person, so I would have panic attacks, which isn't really controllable for the most part, but it would help numb you up for a little bit. And of course, there's always drugs and alcohol, but that is a bad way to cope with things. It only makes it worse, it intensifies it, it keeps it lingering longer, amongst damaging your body, just getting you in with the wrong crowds. The best way I learned how to deal with it is to distract yourself a little bit with productive distractions. So I did a lot of art. I made a lot of murals I painted. I got into leatherworking, that kind of thing. I tried to make friends to go out and do things with, and that worked really well. It brings you a lot of joy. It's good to network. Just generally super helpful with a lot of recovery. You got to make sure those friends are quality, though, or it will damage you more. The friend I had at the time kind of was not the best. She was super into drugs and alcohol and partying. And when I broke up with the boy, all she said was, "I told you so," when I came crying to her. And that's just not okay. That's a terrible friend move. And, like, realistically, why would you ever say that needs your help? But for the most part, it's just a lot of processing productively. I went to therapy for a while, and once I felt like my therapist couldn't do any more for me, I dealt with it myself. I talked to my boyfriend a lot about it, and he helped me kind of work through a lot. Having somebody who's a safe experience after an unsafe experience really helps you process things in a good way, because you can kind of correct your memories in a way where it's like, okay, I'm going through the exact same situation, but I